In this video, we're going to talk about operator. So an operator is just a symbol that represents a simple computation, and you're probably already familiar with these most of the symbols that we will talk about. One is division in Java, so the first computation that we have there is 1.5 divided by 3.2, so that's the symbol for division. Here in this computation, we have the actual number 2 plus, and then here number that represents a variable of type int that we're adding there. So in math class you have variables, and it's kind of the same thing here. Here we are multiplying two variables together. This variable is kind of a special one. Anytime you see something in all caps like that in Java, it is a constant. That violates the rule about we should always start variable names with lowercase letters. The one exception is a constant, in which you have all caps, and that way it's in all caps. You can tell the difference between it and a class name. And so here we have feet in a mile, and that is something that's not going to change during the course of our program. There's 5,280 feet in a mile, right? And so you would just store that in a variable that looks like that. The values that the operators work with are called operands. So on either side here of the operator, those are called the operands. And the operators that we're going to talk about for numeric types are the addition operator, the subtraction operator, the multiplication operator, the division operator. All of those are familiar to you most likely, and the one that you might not be familiar with is the remainder operator. So first, let's talk about the addition, multiplication, and subtraction operators. Those are fairly straightforward, and they kind of work exactly the way that you would expect that they work. So let's take a look at the example that I have here. Okay, in this example, I've got some statements here, some operations or computations that I want to make, and then I've just encased those in system.out.println commands. So what's going to happen here is that it's going to perform that computation and then display the results. And so here you can see I've got three just simple computations: 5 plus 7, 5 minus 7, 5 times 7. And it's just going to perform those and display the results. All right, and so there you can see the results. 5 plus 7 comes out to be 12. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. 5 times 7 is 35. Okay, these numbers are all of type int. In other words, they don't have the decimal point in there. And so if you look at these next set of computations that we're going to make, they all have the 0.0 after the number here. And in math class, you would say there's really, not any difference between 5 and 5.0 or 7 and 7.0, but in Java, there's a definite difference between the two. When you write 0.0 on a number like this, even if it's a whole number, Java is going to interpret that as being of type double. Okay. And if you don't put the 0.0, like in these examples up here, Java is going to interpret that as being of type int. And sure enough, you can see that we're getting the same answers here, but notice that Java puts the 0.0 on the end, meaning, hey, I'm adding the double 5.0 and the double 7.0, so the result is the double 12.0. Okay, so with adding, subtracting, and multiplying, that's not going to make a huge difference, but we're going to see that when we get to division, putting the 0.0 or not is going to make a big difference. So we need to be careful about those things. Here are some other examples. The most interesting one out of this is this middle one right here. You can see that this number has 3 decimal places and this has 5 decimal places. And then when I do the result, I get a bunch of these extra decimal places right here. And that's kind of strange. If you did that in a calculator, you probably wouldn't get that answer. And so the reason why that happens is that um, is that the computer, right? We talked about this before. There's only finitely many numbers that you can write in a computer, decimal numbers, right? Because it's depends on how many bits your computer is. You can write a lot of decimal numbers, but you can't write every single one because there are infinitely many numbers, and the computer can only has space for finitely many. So what that means is that there's just going to be some numbers that the computer will not be able to write exactly, and what it has to do is just to write the closest one that it can write to that value. And you can see that's going to cause some weird things that happen inside the computer. And so your decimal computation, the numbers that you get as the result of operations on decimal numbers, it can be off a little bit. So you have to always be careful about that. All right, and that's it for this one. We will talk in the next video about division.